In the spirit of reconciliation, I acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. I pay my respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples today. Welcome to Totally Lit, the podcast celebrating reading, writing and creating literature. I'm your host, Ky Garvey. Thank you for listening. Aaron Tate, welcome to Totally Lit.
Thank you, Kylie. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to chat to you about your book, Far Horizons. Would you like to tell me a little bit about the book?
Sure. So Far Horizons is a memoir. So it's my story. It starts on September 11. I was a 17-year-old military officer when the terror attacks hit New York. And I deployed to the Persian Gulf the next day to war. So the book starts there, and then the book finishes in a very, very different place 7 years later, when I'm a humanitarian worker in Africa. And it's boy to man, it's war to peace, it's eat, pray, love with guns, basically.
So that must have been a pretty scary time. How were you feeling on that first deployment?
I think a lot of young men have this thing in them where they want to prove themselves, right? They jump off cliffs into the water and they do silly things in the surf, or they drink a lot to show off to their mates, or they do all these sorts of things. And for me, it was joining the military was very exciting. My brother had joined up a couple of years before me. My father was in the military. My grandfather was in the military. My great-grandfather. So this was what the boys in my family did. We grew up with toy guns, playing armies in the street and with our GI Joes. And we were kind of surrounded by this and this life of adventure. So I joined up. I did officer training. I was selected for Navy diving. And when it came, 9/11 happened when I was at the end of my Navy diving course. And being really honest, I was excited to go. Excited to get the call up that next morning. Couldn't believe I'd been picked. Thought I'd be, in the back lines, I'd be sort of safe and sound on the big ship HMAS Sydney. But found out very quickly that I'd be right on the front lines doing the most aggressive high-risk work, which was non-compliant boardings on smugglers that were coming out of Iraq. So basically enforcing a full siege. And the first third of the book is titled War. And it's a young man excited by that adventure, excited by that fight, to be in that scrap. But I can assure you that changes, in that part of the book. And then the second part of the book is escape. And then the third part is peace. There was fear, but you were taught not to show it, not to talk about it, or you just knew that you weren't allowed to, because if you raised fear, you were a coward, and cowards didn't get sent on the good missions.
I have family. We have a military background in my family, and there has been times where when I've thought about those people that I love being involved in conflict, thinking about how brave that is, but also they saw some situations and then there's fallout from that later on. Do you explore that in your work?
Absolutely. In that first part of the book, the war section, I have this conversation with an Iraqi cook on a ship that we've taken control of, and his life is ruined because of the mission that I've just done on his ship. But the next morning, as the sun's coming up, he gets sent off to make food for the crew so we can get them fed. We're taking them to a holding area, and I'm there to guard him. And at first, I'm very suspicious. I've got my hand on my weapon. We're briefed that these guys are terrorists, that they will kill us, that they'll try to kill us in any way possible. And to be honest, the night before, he had been trying to kill us. But then I sit with him like I'm still a boy. I'm 18 by that point, but he's a man. He's in his 50s. And we have this heart-to-heart that he slowly sort of gets to my soul. And he's just wrapped up in this war, and he doesn't want to be on that ship. He doesn't want to be doing what he's doing. And I start to question what I'm doing in that war. So it becomes this, yes, I'm full of trauma and post-traumatic stress already. I'm operating at that point all the time. But then having this conversation with Farouk, the truth is the meaning of his name, it gets to this like deep concern of like, I don't know if this is a good war. And I thought I'd been sent to go fight in a good war. And there's trauma from a mental health perspective. And then there's this deep feeling of unsettlement of like, I don't think this is a good war. And that is a major challenge for me, that I then become almost obsessive about what have I done? And I've got to right my wrongs here. And this has actually been catastrophically bad for the world. And I have to stop what I'm doing here. The trauma turns into a need to do good, which is where the story goes and it's where my life goes.
I definitely understand that need to do good, although my personal experience is not this idea. I haven't been to war, but I do understand that idea of having to make sense of the things that are happening to you.
Mm.
How did you feel? Because you're enlisted in the army, you can't say no when you're sent to do your duty. How did you feel continuing in the army for another 7 years or so, not being able to
Yes.
say no?
So I was in the Navy, and then after I came back from the Persian Gulf, went to the Defence Force Academy and was studying 3 years of degrees and leadership training, and then was deployed back into the diving and mine clearance unit. And officers, when we go through these courses, we do bomb disposal, basically, where we learn how to defuse mines and bombs. And it's some of the most dangerous work that you could have been doing in Iraq and Afghanistan at the time. So I was in the Navy serving Australia at sea as a navigator and a warfare officer. And then they kept telling me, Aaron, it's time to go and do your officer's course. And I knew that as soon as I finished that course, I would literally graduate and go back to Iraq and then or Afghanistan and be defusing bombs. And I wasn't avoiding that necessarily, but I kept getting deployed to other ships and other jobs. And it was like, oh, Aaron will do his course soon. And then my time was up. We served these 7 years, and it really is like, it almost feels like a prison sentence for sort of some of us are counting these years down because we sign up as 17-year-olds, many of us, very young. So during that time, and I'm a navigator and a warfare officer, I'm at sea serving Australia in the Navy, I'm studying like crazy. So I'm doing a master's degree in international development, and I'm doing a master's degree in international politics. And I'm just preparing myself for the new version of me, which is to go. At that point, I wanted to move to the continent of Africa. I didn't care where. And I wanted to go and help people. It was as simple as that. And I wanted to equip myself with these degrees. So I served my time. I left the Navy honorably and then took a one-way flight with my then girlfriend, Caitlin, and we moved to Kenya. But my best friends went and did their officers' courses, and some of my other friends did those courses and went straight to Iraq and straight to Afghanistan. And it's been incredibly difficult for them because of what they went through up there. So I'm sort of blessed in a way that I didn't go back for that work because I don't know who I would have been if I did. Or if I could have even done it. I think I would have been a conscientious objector at that point and said, I can't go and do this. I can't fight this war. I don't believe in this war anymore.
It is kind of those sliding doors moments where if I go this way, what will I become? But if I go this way, and then once you've made that choice, you can't, I guess, look back and wonder in that you're in the present now. In terms of that moment when you decided you wanted to do good and give back to the world, did you know what it was going to be? Or were there any experiences that you had that prompted you to choose Africa to go to?
So I'd been studying economics and politics at an undergrad level and became very, very interested and excited about the ability for sort of macro change, like country level change. And that built this fascination for international development as a theme. I was traveling as much as I could in my time off from the military, and I started to build a passion for microfinance and poverty eradication, these kinds of things. I traveled all through Asia. I traveled all through South America and Central America, and Africa was this place. And I say Africa almost cliche. It's like it's this entire continent, but Africa as a continent was this sort of unknown, and I found it scary and foreign, and I didn't know what to grab onto or where to start. I just knew I wanted to go there. And, I'd grown up, again, it might sound funny, but I grew up reading books like The Power of One by Bryce Courtney and thinking like, what is this place? It's amazing. And seeing the Springboks come and play the All Blacks in rugby. And I was like, who are these men, like these huge men that come over from this country? So I had that curiosity and passion for that place. And when I was leaving the military, I literally called Qantas and I said, I have 38,000 frequent flyer miles and I want to get one way somewhere in Africa. And they said, Nairobi, Christmas Eve, 2007, we have available for that amount of points. Do you want to take that? And like on the spot, I was like, I better check with my girlfriend, but sure, I'll take it.
Huh.
And my girlfriend came back from the cafe and I was like, hey, you know how we've talked about moving to Africa? Well, I just booked my flight and it's a one-way ticket. And if you want to come, I guess we need to find you a ticket too. And that's my style. I jump and then I look around and I go, oh, were we supposed to jump? But yeah, that's how we ended up in Kenya because of Qantas frequent flyer miles.
Fate took a hand in that, I think.
I think so, yeah.
It's almost like spinning the globe and just picking a spot, isn't it?
Yeah.
That sounds quite exciting though. I did get a bit of a thrill when you said that. Oh.
Yeah, sort of like people say, oh, what do you want when people finish your book? And I kind of want people to make a rash decision. I want them to like book a one-way flight somewhere or like tell someone that they love them or leave a situation that they shouldn't be in or just do something big. I love that, living deliberately and saying like, you know what, this is who I want to be, so I'm going for it. So that's what I want people to do when they close this book. The book actually comes out today. This is launch day.
Oh, thank you for being here then.
Yes, but people have sort of got their hands on the book early and people are finishing it. They're reading it quickly. They're saying, I got it and 24 hours later I finished it and can I talk to you about it? So like people are sending me long messages and emails and some people are calling me, friends and strangers just going, can I just speak at you for a while? Because I'm like, there's a lot going on in my head right now. And that's perfect. Like I want people to finish the book and make this noise of like, huh.
Yep.
And then kind of just go to dinner with their family and like not be able to talk much because they're like their mind is just buzzing. That's what I want.
Sounds like you're in the right direction with that. At what point did you decide that you were going to write this book?
A funny question because I finished this book 12 years ago on a balcony in Buenos Aires in Argentina. I like did a full stop and said to Caitlin, I said, I'm done. It's finished. Now I can go publish this. And then at that time, I was running a global nonprofit. I was also running a business that was going to scale as an entrepreneur. I was like, maybe it's not ready yet. And I signed it to an agent that summer. And she said, I love this book. I want to get it out there. And then she sort of came back to me 6 weeks later and she's like, I can't sell this book because the only male memoirs that are selling are like Australian cricket players.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, it's devastating because I want this story to be out there, but like all the best with it. So it's kind of like, okay, I don't know what to do there. You know, I've published 3 other books in the meantime, but they're nonfiction, business, innovation, social impact kind of books. And they've done well, you know, they've sold 120,000 copies. So I know what it feels like to have my name on a book and my mum be proud of it. But this was like the literary one that I always wanted to do. This was the passion project that was sitting there. So I picked it up again years later and worked on it. And then I got busy again. And then about 2 years ago, I said, I really want to get this done. And I sold a business. I'd left the nonprofit that I'd started with lots of love still there. My young boys were not babies anymore. And I was like, I think this is the moment to do it. And got a writing coach. It was great. So 6 quick mentoring sessions to get it all motivated and inspired again. Found an incredible structural editor by the name of Alexis Washam. She was Sally Rooney's structural editor for Normal People. That was an amazing process. And then got a brilliant copy editor, Michael McConnell. He did Elizabeth Gilbert's books of Eat, Pray, Love fame.
Oh, amazing.
So I was getting like really solid people on the project with me and becoming a real writer through that process. Going from being like, I think I can tell stories pretty well and I've written these nonfiction books to like, now I think maybe I can actually put together a literary book, like a proper memoir that's going to be sold in bookstores and I'll go to the airport and see it on shelves. And yeah, it was a mindset shift of like, I'm sort of an imposter author because while I've written these other 3 books, I've still been an entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur. It's like now I'm an author. And I go to someone says at the pub, what do you do? I say, I'm an author. And that's been an identity shift that's really only happened this year.
It is exciting the first time someone you know introduces you to someone else and says, oh, this is Aaron, he's an author. And
yeah. And they sort of
It's
like
like,
people go,
oh,
"Oh,
yes, I
cool." Like,
am.
yeah, what are you writing about? And then you got to have your little pitch ready to go. But I find women in particular will go, "Oh, that's amazing," and men are kind of like, "I don't read books." There's a
It,
lot of men not reading books these days. It's very sad.
it is interesting. I was at a get together on Saturday that was all Brisbane writers, and all of the table bar one were all female, and there was
Uh
just
huh.
one guy there. So it was about 20 women to one
Mm.
guy. And we do have more men in our writers group, but it is predominantly female. And I think I'm not sure why there's been such a shift in who readers and who writers, but it does seem to be that it is women.
It's a huge shift, really big shift. And the other thing is, no one's going to have any sympathy for the men because they had it so good for so long as
Yes.
writers, you know. So it's fair that women and people of minorities are getting these awesome opportunities and power to it. We need to see more of it. I have two boys, as I've mentioned, and the best people I know in the world are people who just grew up reading voraciously. And I really worry that boys are not reading as much. And I also worry that grown men are not reading at all, a
Yeah.
lot of them. You know, again, I talk guys at the pub or on the sidelines of Saturday sport or at Nippers on Sunday, and guys are like, I don't read anymore. And that's really concerning because they're still consuming content,
Yes.
but it's often in the form of a long form podcaster from the guy podcaster that they like to listen to. So they're
Yes.
getting one voice now rather than getting the whole world like we get with our books.
Is it that the novels that are being written are not of interest to them, or whether it's a whole lifestyle of, oh, it's not cool to read if you're a guy?
Both, I think. Like we're seeing less men get published. The
Mm.
stats are showing that because a lot of the publishing houses and agencies female led, which again is awesome. But there's less compelling books being published, less compelling books going into bookstores. So when a man walks into a bookstore these days, there's maybe less options for him that are interesting him, which is a shame. So we want to get those options in front of him, from the classics that they should be reading through to new books that might excite them. If they have to be reading Jason Bourne thrillers, that's fine too, but just something. But yeah, I also feel like we need to make reading cool again for men, as you say.
Yeah,
There are some fun things coming. Luke Bateman's doing some fun stuff with his Instagram page, but again, that's a lot of books for women there. But there is a very funny Instagram handle called Hot Dudes Reading. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I haven't
It's
seen that. I'll follow that.
it's handsome men on the subway of New York reading real physical books, and it just takes they just take a photo of them anonymously, and then the caption is very cute and funny, and it's kind of gone viral. So if that stuff's happening, who knows? Maybe it's going to be a trend.
I think it is really important, especially for young men and as they proceed into adulthood, to be able to read books where they can read about the examination of what it is to be a man. Like, because there are things that men face that women do not. And certainly, I have never had to go to war, and I have never been frightened to cry or to admit I'm scared, or all of those things that like men are not allowed to do. But I have also raised two sons who have faced those issues in that when they're facing challenges, they're trying to face them in a manly way.
Hmm.
And as I'd be like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to tell me how you're feeling. And I'm actually very interested at how little influence, even though I think I've raised them to be feminists, some
Hmm.
of their attitudes have not come from me, they've come from society. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting that they would think that way when I think I've been raising them in one way, but they're actually, their peers have a lot of influence over them. Um,
Mm.
so I think it, yeah, is really important that there are men in books, because I'm always saying it's important for kids and young people to see themselves.
Totally, and they're going to get influenced by content of some kind, right? So it's like, hopefully, it can be books to a larger extent than it currently is. There's an ABC report the other day that only 10% of boys and young men aged between 15 to 24, only 10% of them read once a day. That's magazine, newspaper, or book. So 90% are not reading
Mm.
regularly. You know, I had an Uber driver that was taking me back, this hotel that I'm staying at. And he said, I haven't read a book for 40 years, he told me.
Wow.
And he said, life's too busy. And if I have any time, what I'll do is I'll watch YouTube instead. YouTube is just serving up an algorithm of stuff that's not always healthy.
No, and it's so easy to get sucked in. Like, I have TikTok on my phone, but I don't utilize it. But every now and then I might click on it and start scrolling through videos, and they're just short, sharp assaults on my eyes.
And you're in,
But then suddenly an hour is gone, and literally all of those apps and streaming services and things where they're just channeling information at you, and it's almost like time is standing still, but you haven't learnt anything.
And
or
a book is like
your mind.
A book is, I keep saying books are like the antidote to distraction, or they're like distraction busters. Like, you are out of the algorithm when you're reading a book. Like, the internet can't get to you. So it's like one of these last refuges we have when we're in our living rooms or our bedrooms. It's like the algorithm can't get us. We can get it by going for a surf or a swim or a hike, all that kind of great stuff. But if you want to consume content, this is like algorithm-free content. Like, what a miracle. Yeah.
Now that your book is out, will you be visiting bookshops around the country or doing any events that people can come and see you at?
I was at an event last night in Perth at Boundless Books, which is a magnificent store in Leederville, in the city. I woke up at 3:00 this morning to make a 5 a.m. flight to come to Melbourne. So I'm in Melbourne now. I have an event tomorrow night at Readings Emporium in the city in Melbourne. I've got an event at the Book Room in Byron Bay, which is a brilliant book room. It's my hometown event. I've got an event coming up in Sydney at the Canva headquarters, actually, the technology company.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that'll be a great thing in partnership with a team called Global Shapers, the sort of passionate young folks that want to go change the world. So that'll be a nice community to be there, and more events popping up, and with media and newspapers and radio and podcasters have been so supportive of the book. So yeah, it's just getting it out there right now. I talked to John at the Book Room in Byron Bay, and he said to me, how do you think people are buying books these days? Why do you think they make book buying decisions? I said, I don't know, Instagram or TikTok or these sorts of things. And he said, still he believes the most powerful influence on people buying a book is their friend or family member telling them about it. So if you read a great book, tell 10 people, because, one of them might go and buy that book.
Yes. Well, I find my team at my day job at work, we are always sharing books with each other. So when we have our team meeting on a Monday, we also share the books we've read over the weekend. So I'm always reading new books that way as well, even though because I'm a podcaster, I hear about everything anyway. But
I want people to buy this book for Dad for Christmas and just shove it in his hand and go, Dad, read this if it's the one book you read this year, or a son or an uncle or a partner. But then I want the men to say, hey, this was kind of good. You should pass it back to the woman and say, you should read this. This is awesome.
I think there is starting to be a ripple of men's book clubs happening out around the traps as well. So I know locally here in Brisbane, there's a group just in my suburb that get together. So I might recommend your book to them.
Yeah, Tough Guy Book Club is a network of book clubs all around the world. And I'm started in Australia. They're a great group. So if you're looking for a book club for men, Tough Guy Book Club, really good one.
Excellent. Now, are you still involved with the work that you're doing, giving back like you were doing in Africa?
No, right now is the short answer. I literally have just come right now, 5 minutes before I sat down to talk with you, Kylie, from a fundraiser event for the organization that I co-founded, which is YGAP. And we have a campaign called Polished Man, where we got men to paint one fingernail for the 1 in 5 children in Australia that suffer from physical and sexual violence.
Right.
And we get men to have that conversation, because a painted fingernail on a man is a conversation starter.
Yep. Right.
But we've also raised millions and millions of dollars through that campaign, and the Hemsworths have painted fingernails, and Zac Efron and Kelly Slater and all sorts of people. So I went to that event tonight and was just a very quiet fan at that event, even though I was one of the co-founders of the organization. So it's a thrill for me to have created something 12, 13 years ago, and now to be completely leaned back and to see another team running that fully without me. People were introducing themselves like, oh, my name's this, and how do you know about YGAP? And I was just sort of playing coy of like, oh, I love this organization. It's great. But so there's that. I've leaned back from that. I had an education business that I sold a few years ago. Actually sold it to Go One, which is a technology unicorn based in Brisbane, where you're from, Carly.
Yep.
And that's given me space and time to lean back from the charity, lean back from the business, and commit some time to writing. And my book was called Far Horizons, and I grew up with Far Horizons, this desire to see the world and live this life that I wanted to live. And now I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and next year we're going to take them around the world for the whole year, Caitlin and I.
Sounds exciting.
So we'll be back in Southern Africa, we'll be in South America and Central America. And it's sort of this, I've gone from this very macro way of thinking about the world to this very micro way of like, what if I just raise these 2 young men as well as I possibly can right now? So life is pretty small and pretty focused, and so fine with that because that's what this chapter's for.
It is interesting how your perspective changes when you have someone else to care for, because you sort of are living your life as you are the main character, and then suddenly you're pushed to the side and you've got these new main characters. They require so much care, but also you're so instrumental in creating who they are as well. And it's a big job being a parent.
Yeah, and there's this line, the shoemaker's son has no shoes. So the idea is that like if you're out there helping everyone else, sometimes you forget to, focus on your own children. And I found that when my first son was born, Finn, the busiest year I had was 150 flights.
Flights.
I was away too much, and I missed some of his time. So I've committed myself while they're this young to not miss that time.
Because you can't get it back.
Well, they say 9 good summers.
Mm-hmm.
You've got 9 good summers with them before they start to go, hey, Dad, we don't want to hang out with you on the trip this time. We're going to hang with our mates. Yeah.
My sons are in their late teens, early 20s now, and I am the uncoolest person on the planet at the moment. They say
They'll come back.
They'll
come back.
So for aspiring authors who would like to share their life experience in a memoir, do you have any tips that you can share with someone who's trying to get their story out?
So things that I've learned along the way, a memoir is not your autobiography. It's very different. A memoir is a time that you choose. A memoir could be an afternoon in Paris. The whole book could be that. It could be a weekend in New York. It could be the best summer of your life. It could be the winter you fell in love, or it could be these 3 years where something happened. So you choose the time frame of your memoir. That's one thing to think about. And be selective with that, because no one wants to hear your whole life story unless the entire story is incredibly fascinating. Mm-hmm. So think about the time, and then perhaps think of a memoir as like 20 to 25 scenes. So if you've got that time, what are the scenes, almost like building out a movie?
Yep.
What are the scenes that serve that story arc? And you still want to have an arc in a memoir. You can't just magically create characters and storylines. If you're saying it's truth, it needs to be as close as the truth as you can get it in a storytelling format.
Yep.
I've said at the start of my book, these events happened 20 years ago. So I'm drawing on journals and faded memories and my recollections as they are now and the sense that I've made from all that. But I'm pretty open about that. It's, anyone writing a memoir needs to know that this is their version of the events. And someone else that was there might be like, well, hang on, that's not quite how I remembered it. But memory is weird, really weird. So yeah, be careful of that as well with memoir, that you're being as true to the story as you can. Also noting you've got to make it an enjoyable story, because if you just deliver, 290 pages of pure facts, cold, hard facts, it's not an interesting read. It's
not a page turner.
It's a collection of facts, yeah. Set the time frame, think of it as 25 scenes, and then really dig into that truth. And also what I learned with this one was the rawness and the vulnerability is where the magic will be. Mm-hmm. So Alexis, this brilliant editor who's worked with Sally Rooney and many other fantastic authors, she would look at 70 pages of the manuscript and say, we could lose them.
Yep.
And she would see a sentence and say, I need 10 pages on that sentence. And I was like, I deliberately kept that at a sentence because I didn't want to go there. It's too hard. And she's like, well, it's up to you. But then that challenge was laid, the seed had been sown. And one particular scene, it's a scene in Brazil in the book, and I wrote it until midnight and closed my laptop, terrified of what I'd written and convinced I would never tell anyone that story ever again. No one knew that story other than myself and the person that was in that moment. And I I rented this cabin up in the hills and there's no Wi-Fi, and I sort of poured myself a bath. I was on the balcony and I had a glass of wine at about 1 a.m, and I thought, like, maybe I'll give it until the morning. I won't delete it all just yet.
I was going to say, were you
And I
tempted to delete?
totally, like, select all, delete, gone. And I woke up at 6 in the morning, made myself a pot of coffee and got to work on it again and spent the next 6 or 7 hours working on that bit. And then I think maybe it's the best part of the book.
It's
And
good that someone was pushing you.
yeah, yeah. Later on,
Did
my wife had to read that, and she's like, it was kind of a big moment for her to read
Mm.
that, and we had to talk about that. It's like, it's not easy being married to a memoir writer.
Well, because, like, you could choose to fictionalize your story, but then you can't own it as your lived experience. But then there's the
Yeah,
compromise of, am I creating a piece of art and I really want it to be good, so I'm including this story because it's going to be good?
mm,
Then there's a compromise of, I really want this book to sell. It needs this in it
yeah,
to be a compelling read. So you're making compromises and trade-offs when it is your own lived experience, because also everyone that reads it knows that is something that has actually happened to you as well. So you're bearing your soul and sharing
yeah,
things that you wouldn't usually tell everyone you know.
yeah. And also, it's interesting on character development as well. So I had characters in the book. They expect now when they read it that they'll be in the book. They're kind of like flicking through,
Mhm.
like, where's my name?
Yep.
Because they were pretty key characters in the actual thing that happened in the war or in Africa. But for editing purposes and for storytelling purposes, they're not in the book. I've taken them out because it's like I didn't have the time and the space or the need, sounds really crude, but to develop that character. They just were omitted from the story. And that's kind of weird for them. They're kind of like, oh, Aaron doesn't see me as important, or I didn't, you know.
Mm.
But it's like, if I've in a boarding team of 10 or 14 military warriors, I can't create 14 characters. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and everyone's going to go, like, what? Who are these guys? And why did we just lose them? And we had them for like a chapter, but now they're gone. And so in the editing phase as well, they were like, do we really need this person? And I was like, it breaks my heart to like take them out of the book, but I'm not writing the book to please all my friends. I'm
Yeah.
writing the book
Mm.
to create a piece of art.
Did you have to worry about, like, media releases and things like that if you included someone?
I kept the cast of characters pretty tight. I've changed names, and I've acknowledged that at the start. I've changed some location places, some of them in Africa and some of them in the military. Everyone that is in the book and is a key character in the book knows they're in the book, but they are reading it for the first time when they buy the book, or it's gifted to them. So there's a little bit of a reveal moment of, like, I'm a little nervous by when some of them, like, my parents were nervous about the book. They hadn't read anything that was in it, their characters in it. They were nervous of the way they'd be portrayed. And I said, there's no need to feel that energy, actually.
Mm.
You come out just fine. And little things that might pop up, they'd say, like, oh, I don't know about that. You wrote about that. I was like, is it the truth though? And they're like, yeah, it's the truth. And I was like, yeah, I have to sort of be a bit raw here. If it's like, oh, this person was a nice person, this was a nice person, and this nice thing happened to me, and then this nice thing happened to me, and the end, it's not an interesting book.
Not
So,
reality in any way either, 'cause
yeah,
some of
I'm
those
tougher on
things that
myself.
happened to you were not nice.
My wife actually called me today. God, I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this, but she called me today and she's just read it again for the second time, finished it last night. And she's like, I come across as too good. Like, I'm like sort of angelic, and you're so mean on yourself, Aaron. And she's like, I wasn't that good. Like, I have all these flaws and dimensions. And she's like, why did you do that? And I was like, well, I don't know. We've got to unpack that. Like, I don't know. I think you're really a beautiful person, and like, you healed me in a way, and everywhere she goes, people love her. But she felt like I was too nice to her, which is probably better than the opposite. I guess.
Yes. But I think potentially too, because we are all unkind to ourselves in our own heads. The perspective other people have of us is often very different of what we think of ourselves. So it could be that you have portrayed how you feel about your wife, but she is feeling about herself in a different way.
Yeah,
But
that's
it
true.
is good. I think it's a lovely thing to do for your wife to show her how you feel about her.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
that's like a gift to her.
Yeah, and even my parents, like, I saw them on the weekend and we walked out along the beach and sat on a break wall and we just like sat for a couple of hours chatting and they were like, "This book is huge for us." They're like, "When you wrote things in there that we like never thought we would hear from you." It's huge, and that's a gift that I get to say some of those things in written form that might be harder to say around the Christmas table on our third glass of Chardonnay.
Yeah. And it can be like difficult conversations, regardless if you're sharing something good or bad. Like it can be hard to tell people that you love them or to whatever you're feeling inside, saying it face to face can be really hard, but you can put that in your book.
Yeah.
And then when you have complicated feelings about something that's happened to you, it's easier to put it in the book than to sit down with someone and say, I felt conflicted in this situation. I'm worried about what other people might think of the feelings that I had in this scenario. But you can write about it, and one, it kind of releases you as well. Like, did you find the experience cathartic?
Absolutely. And I would recommend that everyone sit down and does their own memoir. Like, it's such a powerful process. And it doesn't have to be picked up by a mainstream publisher. It doesn't have to go into all the bookstores and you don't have to do a national tour with events to back it up. Like, you might do a print run of 3 and you hold one and you gift one to someone you love and maybe one gets put aside for, someone to read years down the track, maybe your kids. Like, that would be a meaningful project. And there's so many resources these days with readsy.com and all these kinds of things where you can get copy editors to work on this stuff with you and you can get a typesetter to help you get it ready to get printed and then print them they might cost $65 a book, but you've created a book. It's awesome. There's something in the world. But yeah, for me, it was in some ways, as I'm touring the book and marketing the book, it's like the book's starting to make a new sense as well. Like people are calling me and going like, oh my God, this scene, like, I was just like, and sobbing when I read this scene. I was like, wow, I didn't think that scene was going to be like a standout for people. It's like, this scene keeps popping up. Like when people reach out to me, I say, what's sticking? Like, what are you still remembering from the book? And that's been really interesting. I keep writing that down as well. So yeah, I've loved the process. No one says this anymore, but I feel proud that I've done it, published it, and it's out there. And I feel proud when people say like, I read it and I loved it and thank you for writing it. And yeah, it's okay to be proud of things we create.
It definitely is okay to be proud. It's not really part of our Aussie culture to do that.
No.
But I think if you've done something well, that's okay. And you're allowed to feel good about that.
Yeah. Like old friends last night and family members at this event that I did in Perth, I was saying like, Aaron, we're proud of you. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Thank you. That means a lot. And again, they might not have said that just in passing or,
And writing a book is not a little thing. Like it's a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of brain power. Plus, you also had to live those experiences as well. So it's a big project to then put it into writing. Now, I have one more question, which may be a little bit ironic, seeing you have disclosed so much about yourself in your memoir. But can you tell me one surprising thing about yourself that your readers and other writers may not know about you?
I am a Cambridge graduate. I grew up in the suburbs of Perth. I went to public schools in primary school and then junior high in New Zealand. And then my father, who's in his late 60s, just graduated his first degree. But before that,
well done.
which I'm so proud of him for. But before that, I was, my brother and I were the first in our family to have degrees. And I had a female mentor by the name of Dallas, a close friend, but really a mentor and a guide in a way. When I was backpacking around the world and I was broke and I was 21 years old, I slept on her couch in Earl's Court in London. And she's like, you're clever, Aaron. There's something about you. You should go to Cambridge University. And I was like, nah, kids like me don't go to Cambridge University. And she's like, let's go tomorrow. I'll take you to the London School of Economics and show you around. And because that's where she'd been.
That's so cool.
And I was like, I don't have any clothes. So like, I borrowed her husband's clothes, and they're like a couple of sizes too big for me, and I had to like put a different hole in the belt and tuck my shirt in so my jeans weren't falling down that I was borrowing. And I walked around London School of Economics, and I was like, wow, what an amazing place to come and study one day. And she's like, this is where you live, Aaron. This is where you should be. And you're worthy of this. And it was just this like gift from this woman who's, 20 years older than me, and just saw something in me and gave me that nudge. And when I got into Cambridge, I was living in Kenya at the time. The letter of acceptance went to her house because I didn't have a postal address. And she called me and they sent me an email. And she was like, hey, there's a little letter here from a little university. Should we open it? And it was like, oh, wow, it's Cambridge. I went there. It was my third master's degree that I'd studied. And I went and spent a year at Cambridge, and it was just like magnificent. Like dinner was like Hogwarts every night, like you'd see Stephen Hawking's wheeling to class. Like you cycle past the apple tree. That was the apple that fell on Newton's head. I was in the faculty that Charles Darwin wrote The Origin of the Species in. It was just like staggeringly good. And I think if a kid like me, a suburban kid from a family of migrants who ran delis but had this sort of hustle mentality of like, we can improve our lives. If I can go to a school like Cambridge, there's plenty more kids in Australia that could do that. So if you have this inkling that maybe that's a place you could go study, even as an adult, go. It's just unbelievable. It's just like hub of learning like nothing I've ever experienced before, and just a total honor to go there.
That sounds like a once in a lifetime opportunity. That's wonderful that you had that experience. But also, I think one key thing in that story is you listened to someone who believed in you, because I think it can be so easy for us to dismiss people when they're telling us, you can do this, and we sometimes are our own worst enemies. But I love that you followed through with that. You applied and had that amazing experience. And I think, we should really always be listening to people when they give us that nudge, because, it can take you in wonderful directions.
Totally. And for your listeners, maybe this is the nudge to write the book, to write it, to get it published, and to get it in people's hands.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Aaron. It's been great to chat and hear about all of your experiences. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Kylie. Appreciate your support for writers.
You're welcome. Totally Lit is an independent podcast. You can help support us to continue to chat with wonderful Australian creatives by leaving a review on iTunes or sharing our socials with your friends. You can also make a contribution at www.buymeacoffee.com/totallylit. This will also help with equipment and podcasting platform fees. I love to interact with our listeners, so feel free to say hello either by email or social media at totallylitpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn and Twitter, and now Blue Sky. I've also created a group on Facebook called the Totally Lit Writing Community. It's a space to continue the conversation and share your writing successes, events, launches and latest projects. Jump into the group and say hello. Thank you for listening to Totally Lit, and don't forget to go out into the world to read, write, create, ignite.